Hello, Blazor fans. Welcome to the Friday episode of Blazor State Has Changed. See, we've got some folks in the chat room already. Welcome back, Chris Santi, and hello from Romania. Hello from Kentucky in the U.S. Nice to have you. Hey, it's Brendanis. Thanks for stopping by, man. I haven't been able to join your stream for a while. I've been busy streaming myself. Been 2 or 3 times a week lately. It's, I don't know how you do it, man. Mr. Sequel Magoo, welcome back. Brendan is so far away. So far away. Hello, all. Got quite a bit of community news this week. I've kind of felt bad because I like to do show notes on my Friday shows, and I've been slacking on that for quite a while. So I had a blog post that went out over the weekend, or actually this was the 9th. So it was Tuesday. It wasn't the weekend. I'm losing track of time already. So on Tuesday, I put this post out. It was kind of a summary of all of the great community news and projects that I had put on the show over the last probably 2 or 3 weeks. So there is a summary of pretty much all of July's blog posts that people from the community have had. So if you haven't got a chance to check that out yet, give it a look. And today we are going to... we're going to go over some more community stuff, and I will post a second community update because I have just so much community news to report on. There's some really awesome projects going on out there, and everybody's been really busy. And I think we're going to have Preview 7 coming up here soon. So when Preview 7 ships, I'm sure we'll all be updating our code. Our Gamage says, thank you for the articles. Thank you. Actually, thank you everybody that is listed in here, from Chris Santi to Michael Washington, Peter Morris, and so on, for all the great content that is spilling out onto Twitter and into blogs and all over the place, and Mr. Magoo with all of his demos and whatnot. And to all the people that I've got lined up to mention this morning. If I have time today, is there a chance we can show how to overwrite the default Blazor identity pages? Let me put that on the back burner, and I have an idea of how I can show you that. Even though I haven't done it before, I will see what I can find out. Curious to see why each heading is a bookmark instead of a link to the article. On this post, if these are bookmarks so you can share the page at that heading. Yeah, Chris Santi's headed in the right direction there. So I believe the way that the authentication works in Blazor, or identity works in Blazor, is it's still using Razor views. So it's still the scaffolding tool that was in MVC. But we can take a look at it in a minute. So on to some news. This was my post. I dropped that in the chat room. We got this on the show the other day, and I wanted to post this again. This is Steve Sanderson's GitHub page for his presentations at NDC Oslo. He had a video that's been circulating on Twitter. These are the demos that go along with that video that is out there. So Steve Sanderson, NDC Oslo. So good stuff there. We got the car buyer guide, mission control, showing some JavaScript interop, and then there's Blazor basics in there. So just quick shout out to Steve's projects there. That's where you can find those. On the Telerik website, not so much a Blazor specific thing, but a great post about web accessibility. So I wanted to share that with everybody. This was actually targeted at Kendo React, which is a sister product of Telerik UI for Blazor. So it's a great read, and it all applies to web development in general. And the engineering groups cross over for that, so you'll see a lot of these practices being used on Telerik UI for Blazor as well. So I thought I'd give them a shout out, and let everybody take a look at that article. It's actually pretty lengthy. If it has a table of contents, you know it's going to be a long read, but it's really good stuff for accessibility, learning, and best practices. So this is an excellent resource to put in your bookmarks. So when the topic comes up at work, you have an excellent resource to fall back on. I thought this was really cool. This is very Blazor specific. This is an article and project sample. This was by, let's see, this was by, sorry, I've got so many of these lined up. Yeah, Diego Giamichelli. Yeah, I think that's how you pronounce it. But anyway, he does the traveling salesman with Blazor. And there's a good step-by-step on how he accomplished this in Blazor. Used quite a bit of C# code here. There's one little JavaScript interop piece that I think does the drawing of the actual sales route. So the traveling salesman, what you're trying to do is find the shortest route between points, and then he graphs those points out onto the screen using a little JS interop. There's a little animation of it there. I don't know how well that comes over in the stream, but it's a really cool demo. So make sure you check that out. Source code is online, and it's a good tutorial on how to do these integration type of features and solve real problems. So good stuff there from Diego. The next one, if you're interested in Electron, this is the resource for you. There is a project out there and NuGet package from Robert McLaws, and this GitHub repo will get you to the NuGet package information and how to install it. So the NuGet package helps you get up and running with electron.net and Blazor. There's also a link to an article at the top of the repo on how to do this with the Blazing Pizza app, which is really cool. So shout out to Robert McLaws there for some really good Electron content. I know people are excited to get Blazor working on the desktop, and that's a step in the right direction to make it easy to get started. And then we have Blazor Strap. This is one that's been around for a while, and it's updated pretty frequently. And I wanted to give an extra shout out here to Shannon. I still don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, but it's either Shannon or Channon. Having a last name myself of a CH, I'm assuming it's pronounced as an S. So, Hannon. Hannon. Okay. So the C is silent then. Thank you for that. So Blazor Strap is wrapping up those Bootstrap components for you and making those into nice and easy to use components. But I wanted to give an extra shout out because Hannon solved a problem on a... I'm not going to get this right. Anyway, you helped me with my CSS builder project and solved an issue where there was a null reference exception type of a thing happening. So appreciate that. Wanted to give another shout out to Blazor Strap, which is constantly updated. And all of these Bootstrap styles, they're really easy for getting started on projects like we're working on with Blazeport, and they're all compatible with the Telerik UI for Blazor Bootstrap styles as well, so you can mix and match. So lots of good stuff in here, and quite an effort. So thank you very much. Let's get on to some live coding today, and today we're going to look at cascading dropdowns with our Blazeport project. And first of all, I want to address the Git status of this because I have some changes pending, and I'm not sure if I've checked these in yet. I don't think I have. So I'm just going to take a quick look and see. I think this is where the entity framework stuff was added. So yeah, this is going to be a real easy git commit here. I have not had a chance yet to watch Steve Sanderson's video. I need to make some time to do that. So I'm just going to make a quick git commit here. Added EF queries to views. That'll make it simple. That's about what we did on that. And then I can push that up to GitHub. So now we are in sync with the GitHub repo there. So some quick house cleaning. Now we can get back to our project. I've got a view here. We're going to go to the index page. We'll get this up and running. While that runs, I'm going to spin up another instance of Visual Studio so we can take a fast look at identity real quick here. So I had a question about identity, and while our project starts running, we'll take a look at that. So I'll do a new web application. Hit next here. We'll just let that ride as web application 31. CPU is crunching away on this. All right, so we want to go, I'm going to look at identity real quick. We're going to go to server-side Blazor, and then we're going to change authentication to use individual user account, create. So question at the top of the show was, how do we change the identity pages in Blazor's identity system? So what we should be able to do is we have a folder called areas, and we have a folder called identities and pages. These are actually Razor views, if I'm not mistaken. They're Razor views, or nope, they're Razor pages. So these are Razor pages. And what we need to do is get all of the views that belong to identity so we can modify them. Now, right now, we only have the logout and the login pages for identity. And to get all of the views for identity, they're actually hidden away in a Razor class library. So what we need to do is pull up the scaffolding tool. And I'm trying to figure out where that has gone. This file add, new scaffolded item. So that's what we're going to do. File add, new scaffolded item. And then this will bring us to the add scaffolding dialog box. And if my zoom will work properly, there we go. You can see in the scaffolding dialog, add scaffold, there is a identity tab. If we click on that identity tab and then hit add, this will bring up a wizard that lets us select all of the pages that we want to modify. So what ASP.NET does is if it doesn't find a view with these routes, then it renders what is inside of the class library, the Razor class library. If it finds the folder or the file in this route, it will then override what is in the class library. So if we want to override all of them, we can select this checkbox up top, or we can manage these individually. So what I can do is if I want to change, let's say, there should be like a register. If I want to change register, this will scaffold out the account/register for us. And then we have to specify the DB context, which should be provided out of the box for us. And then we can hit add. Now, inside of my areas identity, I'll get a new account page, and that will have a register.cshtml file in it. It looks like it has to install some NuGet packages and whatnot. It's grabbing those and building out a project. It probably has to build the project to get the correct state of the DB context. because it does use that to build the scaffolding for that item. And now it's generating. So these things are generated on the fly using a Blazor template, actually. And I will show you those Blazor templates in a few seconds here while that spins up. There we go. Scaffolder is done. And now under Pages, Account, I have my register page. So we can see that there. Can you use the new search feature and find these in Visual Studio to find these? I don't know. You might be able to search for scaffolding, maybe? Nope. I don't see that coming up in there. Yeah, I don't see that in search anywhere. So no, it doesn't look like that is available from search. But here's that view now that it's registered, or now that it's been scaffolded. It's under register, and this is using the Blazor pages model. So it's not actually a Blazor component or page. It is a Blazor page, which is compatible with Blazor. And you'll see there's a code behind page for it, where all of the logic for that page goes, and you can modify any of this stuff. So if you want to give this a look and feel that matches your site, that's where you would do that. What's really interesting is the scaffolding for these is actually online as well, and you can override the scaffolder. So if you want to create your own scaffolders, you can do that. Let's see here. See if I can find it real quick. So we'll just do a quick search for scaffolding. There's actually some docs on the identity scaffolder. So there's some helpful stuff here. That should be able to get you started on scaffolding the identity stuff out. And then there is actually a GitHub repo here as well. I'll go to the Telerik one. We use these for our Telerik UI for MVC. And it is under GitHub ASP.NET scaffolding. You'll find all the source code for the scaffolder in here. And this includes the templates that scaffolded that identity stuff out. I'm not sure where it is at in here exactly. Maybe it's under MVC. Blazor pages, and then, nope, that's not the one. Identity. These are related to it, but not what I'm looking for. Templates, maybe. There we go. Templates, identity. So the scaffolder is actually intelligent. Let me back up one level here and share this with everybody. So I'm going to share that real quick. This is where scaffolding gets the template to scaffold from. So if I look under identity, and then you notice there's a Bootstrap 3 and 4. So there's actually something in the tooling that looks to try to figure out which version of Bootstrap you're using to give you the correct version of the templates. So let's click on Bootstrap 4 now. And then in here, you'll see that there is pages. These are all of, there's a lot of them for identity. These are all of the pages that get scaffolded for identity. And we just did the register page here. And this is the scaffolded page here. So you can actually override these scaffolding templates as well by creating a folder under your project that overrides those. And we have some docs on that right here, I believe. Nope, that took me back to the same place. Let's see here. If we go to... there it is. So on the Telerik docs, we have documentation on how to override scaffolding. And what you can do is create a template folder, and then you can add your own generators to that folder. And we have some provided on a GitHub repo for you, but you can create your own. It is quite the tedious process. So what I suggest is starting from a template that is already there. But what's really cool is you can create your own index view scaffolder, for example, and add whatever you want to that and kind of create your own scaffolding templates for your organization. So that's really far down the rabbit hole, but hopefully that gave you as much information as you want. SAM or SMABUK says that you can also specify which version of Bootstrap that you'd like to scaffold from the command line. So that is a command line parameter you can override. So did not know that. Great information there. So I think that about covered everything you possibly could want to know about scaffolding. So let's take a look at our project, and I've got the project up and running here. What we have is these two drop-down lists, and these are actually being fed by a database now. And we have three options in here. These all have a child set of records that belongs to them. And if we look at destinations, it's the same information that's in the drop-downs. So if we go to destinations, we have Earth, the Earth's moon, and Mars. And the child information is under details. So under Earth, we have all of the launch sites where we can launch a flight into space. So we have, for example, Cape Canaveral and so on. I want these to show up in a child drop-down box. So we can select those from our pickup location. So when I select Earth, I want another drop-down box to appear with the child information in it. So let's take a look at how we might be able to do that. So first of all, let's take a look at the default behavior. We start with an empty location, so there would be no child record shown there. So let's go to Visual Studio and find that drop-down box. It is right here, Pickup Location. So underneath Pickup Location, we're going to want to show some child records. And we want to show a div. Class is going to be form group. So we're going to add another form group underneath. So we'll get our nice class there to organize our form. We need a label. And that label is, let's see, we have pickup location. Pickup, let's see, port. It's going to be a port. Let's call it port of travel for now. And I just need to spell that right. Let's capitalize there. We might change that in a little bit. We still haven't done a good UX run on this to see how this form flows and whatnot. We'll take care of that later. We're going to need an input select, but for now, let's see. Let's copy this one. So we have a copy of the selected location, or the main parent location here. And what we want to do, welcome to Giza Pi. Welcome to the show. Welcome aboard. We'll give you some Blazor gloves for joining us here on the show. We've got this child drop down now, and we'll default this one to select a location as well. Maybe it'll need to be like disabled or grayed out when it starts. I don't know if we can do that with an input select. Let's see what happens if we say disabled on here. We'll give that a try and see if it throws an error, takes any effect. We may have to set it to true. It should just be disabled as standard HTML, but we might have to modify that slightly. We'll see how that works out. So we're kind of in some uncharted waters for me right now. I haven't done this yet, so we'll see how this works out. We need to add another field to our form. So if we look at our form for this page, it's actually a trip configuration. This is our form that powers those text boxes and drop downs. So we need to add not only a selected location, so we'll copy selected location. We'll say port of travel here, selected port of travel. That's going to be a string because that is the only thing a drop-down box will accept at this point. It's a string. We're going to end up putting an ID in there, but still it has to be a string value. That's what Blazor gives us back. Let's see, allow empty strings equals false. That's for validation purposes. We will leave that as well. So back to the index page, we need to change this port of travel on our form to a selected port of travel. This is going to be the data that we're binding to. This is the binding value. So we're binding the property value property to a selected port of travel. Then we need to iterate over our list of locations. Actually, we need a list of ports here. And we're going to have to get the list of ports by location ID. So that's going to be an interesting little piece that we have to work in. The default text message here is just going to be select a port now. So we'll change that. And we need to fix this loop because we're looping on locations. We actually want ports here. So the code behind page for this index page is right here. And in it, we have an onInit function, onInit async, which is setting our locations, and then it is awaiting our DB context for that array of locations. We're going to have to do something similar, but we need to do that on the selected event or on some data binding from the parent item. So what we have is when I select this item, I want to bind the data to the drop-down list below. So let's see how we might be able to do that. We're currently using bind. We could do this through capturing an event. Yes, the streams are on YouTube as well, or they're not live on YouTube, but the recordings are on YouTube. You can find those videos at blazorvideos.com. Unfortunately, I don't do multicast streaming because it is frowned upon by Twitch. So I won't be streaming live on YouTube, but you can always find the videos afterwards. Let's see. So we could do one of two things. We could use data binding, two-way data binding, or we can use an event, and we can capture the event. And when the event occurs, we can then write out the values to the drop-down list. I'm going to take the path of least resistance, I think, and try doing it with data binding. So let's see. What we could do is when, let's see, we've got a property called selected location. We'll do a little kind of light MVVM style approach here. And what we could say is if we're going to get the selected location, we will return, we're going to need a backing field first. So let's set up a backing field. We'll plop it right here above this value here. We'll call it selected location. And we'll do it in lowercase because it's going to be a backing field. This needs to be a string. Forgetting my type here. So we've got a selected location field. We'll just return that field. So if we get it, we're going to return it. If we set it, that's when we are going to change our drop-down box. So we will set this, and when we set this value, what we will do is say the selected location is the value. That's our backing field. And then we need to fetch our data. Actually, I'm seeing where this could be a problem. So when we set the data, we're going to want to fetch it from our database. And our database is we want to do that asynchronously. So we might not want to do that inside of a property setter. So let's think for a minute. Maybe we should go back and do it with a event instead, because events can be asynchronous. I'd like to hear your opinions on that. Maybe it'll make a little more sense as we get down the road, but right now I don't see this working very well because it needs to be async call. So we'll back that change out. So back to just a regular property there. Let's go to the page again. And instead of binding the value to selected location, we can't use data binding and an event at the same time, I believe. So what we need to do is just set the value to selected location, and then we need an event handler here. So on, let's do on change. Then we will have an event handler that will fetch our data for us. So on change is going to, we need to write a event handler for. Let's do that down here a little bit further, and we can say it's going to need to be async for async task. We will call it on location changed. On location changed. And we need to import some using statements here. System.threading.tasks needs to come in. And we have our on location changed event. We also need to pass in a parameter here, or we can just look at our selected location. We'll do that. We need a field to hold our... Oh, you know what? I believe I'm doing this in the wrong location. I am doing this in the wrong spot. So I got a little confused here. My mistake. This actually is just the forms model. We need to do this on the index page code behind itself, where all of the action takes place. So my mistake there. So instead of the form model, big question just came in. I will address that in 1 second. We are going to put it on the index page's code behind. And I'll just move this code over to here. So we're stubbing out a location change event. So let's see. I have a question regarding Blazor. Is there any additional installation required to use Blazor in Visual Studio? I have Visual Studio 2019 latest update. Blah, 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 blah. Yep, so DevManNL has got you the answer there. So you need Visual Studio Preview. And I have a little bit of a blog post on this. So it's not directly the answer, but a little indirectly. I did a workshop recently Check out the prerequisite list. This should be, it says preview 5. Obviously, you'll need the latest preview bits, not 5.0, but that'll get you pointed in the right direction. That gives you all the prerequisites necessary, and Visual Studio Preview is going to be a big one. That's probably the thing that's got you hung up there. All right, so when we click on our drop-down box and select a location, we need to select a child. We need to fill in the child elements here. So we have locations. We also need protected. We need a list of ports. These are going to be port details, and they will come, and we will name those as ports. So now we have a field, which is an array of ports, and we need to do the same thing we're doing up here, but we need to get those. We need to say ports is equal to await db context port details. Here's the interesting part. We need to do a query. We need to say where the port is equal to. So the port location ID is equal to the selected. Let's see. We have our form selected location. And that should be a double equal sign, and we also need to parse that out because this is a string. We're going to need to actually parse that into an int. And now that we have it, we need to set it to an array asynchronously. And that is a very long method, so let's break this down a little bit. All right. Why do the fields need to be protected and not private? Because the fields are inheriting. Let's see. If they are private, let me make sure I'm correct on this. Then I will not be able to see them in my index page. Which one did I change here? Location details. Yeah. So my index page, it's like a code behind. If they're private, then my index page that inherits from it cannot see it. So we're inheriting from index base, which is my code behind file for this demo. And notice when I change that to private, this lights up because it's inaccessible. So the protection level is too high. We need to change that to protected versus private, so inherited classes can see it. Great question. All right. So now we've got our query. We're going to say ports, and we're going to select where there is a child of that location. And we'll turn it into an array. And hopefully that gets us our data that we need. Now we can come to our index page, and on change, we'll say on location. On location changed. For some reason IntelliSense is not lighting up there. So what is our issue? Oh, this is not protected. Same exact thing that we just talked about. If you wouldn't have asked that question, then I probably wouldn't have caught that problem so quickly. So again, thanks for the question in the chat room. DevManML, NL pointing to the same conclusion I just got. Yep. So we'll do the on location change. We'll trigger that, and then on location change will then give us our values. But inside of here, we need to do something here first. Let's put this on the back burner for a minute. Let's wipe that out. So we have our input select. Let's think about what it's going to be. Let's say if we need ports. So ports is our array of items that hasn't been selected yet. If ports is null, then we haven't set up an option yet. So we could either remove the entire drop-down list, or we can set a select value here. Get a little Blazor hype going, huh? Good deal, Janescu. Welcome to the show. I don't know how long you've been lurking there, but welcome. So we'll set an option. We'll set an empty option. We'll go ahead and set it like this. And we've also got that disabled on there. So let's see what happens right now. Let's give this a run. Let's see what our current state of the dropdown looks like. So we've added the dropdown. We've added the possibility to get data for the dropdown. I want to see what the default behavior is. I suppose we could use that MVVM type pattern if we had a way to set it asynchronously from a property. Oh, on-handled exception. Value expression parameter normally is provided automatically when using value bind. Input select one requires a value expression parameter. Alrighty. So it does not like the fact that I'm not using bind here. Interesting. Gets or sets the input. This should be used with two-way data binding. So it doesn't want us to set it that way. So once it's used bind value, will it still let us use the onChange method though? I thought that wasn't. I thought you couldn't use the two at the same time. Maybe that's just for raw HTML components. Let's see. Welcome to the show, Freeze Team. Mr. Stephen Kramer, welcome. So I'm not sure why I've got that in my head that we can't use an onChange event with the bind attribute, but that looks like it did do the trick. And disabled does work, so we can just write out the value of disabled there. Yeah, you can't, it gives a warning. That's what I thought, but it's working. So what we want to do next is remove that disabled state. And then we want to set these. Yeah, I'm using bind value and onChange together here. So that surprises me. I did actually think that was an issue. Let's see here. So I want to set the disabled value. I'm trying to remember if it interprets this correctly or not. So let's try a little bit of Razor in here and see what we can get it to do. And we will just put the same bit here. If ports are null, then disabled is true. So if the ports are not null, disabled would be false. Let's see if that gets translated correctly. So it looks like your chat went down, Freeze Team, during your stream. That's not good. That's no fun. I haven't had that happen quite yet. I used the chat that's built into Twitch myself. So let's see what we've got now. Oh, see, now our disabled value changed before we wanted it to. So that's not getting interpreted correctly. So I don't know if you guys have used that yet, the disabled value attribute. But it does not come over correctly. So all the disabled attribute is passed through. Yeah, the thing is, I'm not sure exactly how to write this out because disabled isn't true or false. It's just there or it isn't. So it's disabled, and it's not disabled as true, like that. So if I run that, that should have no effect. It should still will remain enabled. So I don't know how to do that with an input select box. Let's see what how this shows up. So I don't think I can set it dynamically like this. Freeze team, if you go into OBS, assuming you're using OBS, and right-click on your microphone source, there should be a filters box that you can add filters to. There's one called noise reduction. That should help. So it did accept that as true. So maybe this is a, let's see. I used reverse logic is what I think I might have done. Let's double check this. So I should be able to say ports is null. If it is null, then it's disabled. I think I reversed it by accident. Yeah, that seems to be the problem I'm having right now is it's not the same type of thing as a normal attribute that you set true and false to. It's either there or it isn't. So that is working, but as soon as I select this, it's not updating that value. There we go. For some reason, you can't even right-click on that. I thought you could right-click on a disabled element. So it does come through as disabled, but I can't toggle it. I can't change it unless ports is still null for some reason, which I don't think it is. Let's double check that. And we're running server-side Blazor, so what we can do is actually set a breakpoint here. Make sure we've populated that box there. And I can come back to my app. We will refresh the page here, rerun the app. And if I select a location, oh, I'm not hitting my breakpoint. So this on location changed event doesn't happen. So I think I've run into a little catch-22 here. So what's happening is this event doesn't fire. This event is not taking place, and I'm assuming it's because I'm using bind, but it won't let me not use bind. So I may end up having to write this from scratch. I wonder if this is a limitation of the input select, or this is just me not understanding how it works. I'm not afraid to admit that I don't get what's going on. So when I select an item, I'm not seeing an event fire. It would be right here. It is tied up correctly as far as I can tell. We can even, we're not hitting a breakpoint, so putting a console log in there wouldn't help us at all. It looks like it is not firing. Yeah, this is actually beyond the bind should be overriding on change. Yeah, so let's take let's take the disabled thing out of the question for a moment, out of the equation. So let's take that out. What's happening is the on change event. Actually, is that what it is? Hang on, hang on. Do I have the wrong on change event? Value changed. I have the wrong. Yeah, Mr. Magoo caught it right there. Um, it should be value changed, not on changed. So I was trying to use if this was a basic input, then it would be on change like that. But this is a component with its own set of um, values here or properties. Gets or sets a callback to the bound value. What is the problem here? Cannot convert event callback to event callback of string. So this one needs to have the component parameter value changed is used 2 or more times on this component. So now I should be able to take off the bind attribute. And no, that does, yep, that did work. So now I've got one error to deal with. And I need to have a string as a, yeah. Mr. Magoo does not like event callback at all. Kill it with fire. So let's see. We need to pass in a string, it looks like, as an event arg. So this needs to accept a string here. Let's see if that satisfies it. It just says string, which I would assume it would be some sort of event args, but that doesn't seem to be the case. And now it can't convert from method group event callback. Alrighty. Not quite sure why. That seems to be the issue. Let me try a build real quick. So we seriously have to use a lambda expression to get this to work? Don't see why. This seems more complicated than it needs to be. So that actually satisfies. Nope, that does not do it either. Let me rip that string parameter out of there. That may be part of the problem. On location change. No, this still isn't happy. It doesn't like anything about this. No, I took the. Oh, yep. That was part of it. It still doesn't like it. It's not an event callback of string. Let's put the parameter back. See if that makes it happy. That does not. We need to pass the parameter in. Let's see. Value changed of t. Is this giving us an item though? Ugh. I think I'd have a better time writing this component myself at this point. So is this passing any event args or anything in? I don't see that it is, but it keeps asking me for a string. Value change tell you what the type is. It seems like it is, but I don't know. It should give me the type. Yes. Don't use value changed. It sucks. I may just write the input myself at this point. Like, this is just a pain. I don't know what it is looking for. Let's try it just to BS our way in and put nothing as a string just to satisfy that, and it still doesn't like it. There is no argument that corresponds with the parameter selected. I could have swore I added that. Okay. I don't know how that could be. Oh, here we go. Cannot convert. Cannot convert lambda expression to delegate type. Yeah, this is all bad. This does not work at all. Value changed is a pain. Remove the at from value changed. On location changed. No, that's not doing it either. It seems to want to be an event callback, and it doesn't. I don't know what's going on here anymore. It's just a normal. Well, if it's a normal method call, then I don't know how I'm going to asynchronously set my or get my data. On location changed would be void, but then I have an async in here, so I can't do that. So you have it working. I'll take a look if you give me a link. So this issue stemming from the fact that it's an input. Oh, you dropped it above. Gotcha. So your example is to put it in the item. So it's actually, I'm just going to paste over this here. What exactly is a drop-down item, though? Is that a component? I haven't seen that one before. Is that something custom? Master Jared Jetty Rob? That's from Blazor Strap? I'm not using Blazor Strap, so maybe that's why that's not going to work. Let's see. Is there any docs on input select? That's another part of the problem. I don't think there's docs yet. There actually is. So Blazor forms and validation. This is just going to be the basic stuff. This shows with data binding. It doesn't show us how to handle an event, though. Okay. Looks like there was a Stack Overflow question, but this is on a raw select item. which most likely will be what I do. I think I'm going to just take out the input select for now because I don't understand what the heck it's asking for to satisfy Let's take one more look here. I hate to burn too much time on this. This is actually taking way more time than expected. But this is Blazor strap again. We're not using Blazor strap here. I think I don't want to. I don't think I should have to assign an on-click event to each item to make this possible. We should be able to do it on the on-change event of the input select. Whoops, let's see. Looks like there's other input select, bind value, known issues. Let's see. Input select generates a warning. That's something silly. Not what we're looking for. I don't want to have to install a whole library just to fix one little issue. So input select Blazor on change, or is it on change? Value changed. Value changed. Oh boy, value changed. Let's see, this GitHub issue may shed some light. Add bind for two-way binding, current value, input. What was the resolution to this? Wait, this turned into a long post. Gotcha, gotcha. I was hoping it would work with value change, but it seems to not like it, so data binding. I don't understand why I don't understand why a simple method doesn't get accepted here. Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. Let's try something like this. Let's just throw a nothing method in here. This doesn't do anything. It's just a void. We'll call it test. We'll throw that in value changed. Value change test. Doesn't like that. So what does it want? Cannot convert from callback to callback of string. So what if we passed it a parameter of nothing? And, oh wait, that would have to be a lambda then. Because, yeah, we can't just call it like that. We'd have to do this. And that seemed to satisfy it. Nope. And then it throws up again. So, cannot convert. Comma expected. Is it passing anything along that we can use? Just throwing stuff at the wall, see what sticks. Cannot convert object to string. Sure. Don't know if it's actually passing anything or not. So there we go. We got it satisfied that time. No, we didn't. Jesus. Thank you, compiler, for being nice and slow today. Cannot convert to callback. I have no clue what the heck the value changed expression expects as a signature. Component event callback of T gets or sets the update bound value. Value changed. So we can't even get a basic. Yeah, I realize they're strings, which isn't the problem. It's the fact that this stupid event handler property doesn't want to accept a delegate of any kind as a if I just call test here, it still doesn't like it because it says it requires cannot convert method group to event callback. So if I give it a method that takes no parameters, then it says it can't convert it to an event callback of string. So I don't know what the heck it's asking for. This makes me wonder, like, all right, let's go to a simple drop-down box. Should not be this difficult, and this is some feedback I think we'll leave a issue for in the end, unless it's just something stupid I'm overlooking. First, let's check and see if there is an issue. Input select support binding. Input select generates a warning. Should it be an action? I don't think it's asking for an actual event callback. I should be able to assign a delegate to an event callback. Check closed issues. Yeah, there's 6 closed. Blazor input component does not support type of system 32. Yeah, we get that. Input select bind value or value doesn't set from a model. That's not the issue. Select is not binding. None of these are the issue. Let's go into the source code. Source components. I hope they didn't move this, but is it Blazor? Template server assets. Blazor again, maybe. Source. These things are nested so deep. That's not it. Components. Source. Forms. Input components. This is the longest path ever, and we have input select. And if we look at input select, it inherits from input base. So everything's in input base. Input base. Value changed is just a simple event callback. Event callback of T. The type is of string. If there is any documentation at all anywhere may just switch to the Accelerate components just so I don't have to deal with this thing. Value changed at test. I don't know if that's an issue. Yeah, that didn't help. Still the same thing. It seems like it can't figure out which, is nobody using these event callbacks or the, let's see here. Has nobody tried using value changed ever? I should be able to just define this. I mean, if we look at onValid submit, okay? If we look at our onValid submit, this is edit form onValid submit. I've got the @ symbol here. It's a void method. It is an event callback of edit context. I don't have to do anything special here. On trip estimate cost is just a void method. Public void on trip estimate cost. This should work the same way. I should be able to take any public void item here and just slap it on to value changed. It should work without parentheses and @ symbols, questionable. But they're both event callbacks of a type. And it's able to work there, but not here. Why? Why is this being such a pain? Value change of t, value of t. This should be used with 280. I don't know. Don't know what is going on here that it doesn't want. Shouldn't it be on value change? No, because that doesn't get triggered. When you use on value change, nothing happens because the actual thing is wrapped inside. So if we look at the source code, this is an input. This is an input box, and it is wrapped inside of this, and that input box calls value changed. Oh boy, all right. Selected changed, private async void, string value. So this is what should work. And I agree this should work. So I should be able to do private async void selected changed, pass in a string as a value, and if I plop that in here, that should work. But it is not working. And it gives me the same, oh wait, that one says protection level. Give me a second. This should be protected. This should work. And let's see if this finally clears it up. And waiting and waiting. Let me try, I'm going to rebuild. Lacks an await operator. Cannot convert from method group, event callback. What is my type? It should be a string, I assume, because it's getting that from value. And if we look at this, it was saying string here earlier. Don't know why it's not now, but I don't think it's my form type. Let's double check and throw the form in there and just make sure that it's not it. Trip configuration. Let's make sure it's not the trip configuration. Don't think I have to pass in that whole thing. Doesn't matter. Still doesn't like it. In my opinion, it should be a string because that's what's being bound as the value to that box. So the value is of type string. That should be a string as well. Let me try closing this. I know this is silly, but we'll bring it back up and see if anything changes. No. Wow. I cannot get value change to satisfy with any method whatsoever. I tried value bind, but if you do that, I think I might be chasing my tail here. It still doesn't like this. And it also says that I'm using the bind, or I'm using, when I use bind, internally it sets value changed. So it says it's being set twice. So you can't use it that way. Without the value change. But then how do I handle the event? Yeah, there's something haunting this code, all right. I think it's a bug. It's the only thing I can think of at this point is this is a bug. Let me try something simple up here. Let's try input text. Value changed is, this shouldn't matter. It's just generic. What if we did that? So that made it happy. So input text works with that. Is it because I don't have a value set? Let me try removing value from it. These essentially should be the same. An input text and a select box should be identical. This is bizarre. I think we may have hit a bug, actually. Yeah, I wanted to handle the event because I want to do a cascading drop-down box. So I need to take the, I need to change the input select, or the, I need to get the value anyway. Why does, all right, I gotta stop and start over here for a minute. This is where I'm really stuck. If I have an input, so just a regular input, and I set value changed to selected changed, it's happy with that. If I have an input select, which inherits from the same base class as input text, it's not happy anymore. I call foul. I think there's something else going on here. Like these two things. Yeah, I know we can't mix bind and value change, but if you look at input text and look at input select, these are the same thing under the hood. If we look at the source code, all they do is inherit from the same base class. This is input base T. This is where the value changed method is called. And there was nothing special inside of the input select. Event callback factory on change. Maybe this has something to do with it. Event callback factory create binder string this comma current or this comma value. This comma value, current value is string equals value, current value is string. So the onChange event there might have something to do with it. Let me check on the input text. This works, but not on an input select. Yeah, the input select seems to be the issue. OnChange is the same. So in the render tree, the onChange event is identical. In the, let's try this. Let's dupe this. And let's put them side by side. So we went deep into a dark place today. On this side, I'm going to have the input select. This is a source code for an input select, and it is actually doing it via render tree. Maybe I should have these above and below each other, like so. Windows doesn't make this easy, does it? No, I don't want my taskbar, darn it. Oh, you know what? Forget this. I will copy and paste this into another window, for Christ's sakes. Copy that. Put it right. Oh, now I'm not even on the right keys. All right. If you can sense my frustration, you are correct. This is not going well. The compiler wanted to take care of that. Let's just get, I just want text. Visual Studio Code. I'm clicking Visual Studio Code on purpose today. That's a new one. All right. File, new file. I'm looking at the signatures. Yeah, of course you're going to crash. Looking at the signature for actually the generated, or not even generated, it's hard-coded. How is that event callback being called by Blazor? They are identical. They are completely identical. So unless I copied these wrong, this one is from the input text. This is from an input select. Copy from the input select. Am I overthinking this or not? Like they're both input text is attribute 4. This has to be a bug, guys. This has to be a bug. All right. This is the change event from the component. Mr. Magoo says it's working. Check my message above. So this works. Value expression. So this is Mr. Magoo's input here, and it is value expression. Oop. So I need a value expression. Value expression gets or sets identify, so the value bound. If this does work, this is not intuitive, and this needs to change. Like, this should not be the way it's done. Your value would be form dot selected location value changed would be, wow. Value changed. Be selected changed. I pass in the string. That satisfied it. Holy cow. And then completed task. Oh, that would be, gotcha. That's inside of the function. Don't need that. Value expression is what it was missing, I assume. Now, if we set value, is that going to work? I thought value automatically got the value expression for us. Am I wrong? Why does it work on a text input but not a select input is what I'd like to know. Why do we have to go through extra steps when input text box is the calling function is exactly the same? You don't need value? If I don't have the value, though, then how is it set on the form? Because I do want to capture that value, I think. Oh, at this point, I don't know anything anymore. Something wrong with the input select. Not sure. Yeah, something does seem wrong with it. I think I'm going to pop an email off to somebody and ask them about this because I don't feel like this is right. And I feel like this is too complex for what we're trying to do. Oh, so value bind sets the expression. But again, all right, let me back up here. How come, and maybe I'm just dense, if I have to set the value expression on a select box, an input select, I don't have to set it on an input text. But from all intents and purposes, from what I can tell, the input select and the input text are 99% identical, especially around the part that deals with calling the value changed function. So I'm assuming there's an issue. Either that or I'm just missing some nuanced thing. But anyway, shape or form, this is a really bad developer experience. And it needs to change because this is not intuitive. There's nothing that drives me to look for value expression and wired up that way. Yeah. So some feedback is necessary to the team, I believe. That does not work properly. So that finally satisfied the function call. The value expression did it. And then we're passing in that string. Whew. All right. Let's see if we can, that's selected change. Let's see if we can point it to our on location change now. This is not the greatest advertisement for Blazor today. This shouldn't be the case. I even feel like I could just have wired up a normal input faster than this, but I wanted to see what was going on with the input select. Haven't had that with Blazor Strap, huh? We don't have this issue with the Telerik UI components either. It's however they wrapped up this input select, there's something fishy going on. It may be a compiler thing more than anything. or I think it's having a hard time figuring out. The fact that we need this value expression tells me that it's not able to figure out the type based on just setting the value. So I'm thinking there is an underlying compiler issue, maybe. I'm not an expert in that territory. I'm just saying it feels like there's something more afoot than, oh, jeez. That's not the right behavior either. Let's set a breakpoint. And now that is causing some other issue. So if I select the item, I hit this. So I am hitting my breakpoint, which is good. But now, why is this cleared out? Why did that just go empty on me? So now I don't have a value here. Oh, because I need to set it manually now because it's not 2A bound. So that does make sense. So what I would need to do here, so we are stepping in the right direction. This should be a selected location. Actually, this would be form, not selected location. I think my form's getting mixed in with the logic here now. So that's going to have to be rethought too. Some of this functionality should probably fall back on the form itself, rather than these two concerns getting mixed together. Whoops. So since that is not a data bound thing anymore, then we need to give it the selected value there. So that's probably why we have to pass it in as a string. That makes sense. The expression doesn't make sense to me. It should be able to get that on its own. Actually, we will check on that in a moment. I have an idea. So maybe it still could be user error, but it's definitely not intuitive. So earth, boom, I saw that actually kept its value. So that works, and then we need to write those out now. I'm going to go back here and double check one more thing. So the value change needs to have this. I wasn't passing string in with a string type before. So let me just double check and make sure that was necessary. Is value expression necessary? Not seeing an error. Build. So I think, Mr. Magoo, you might have hit the nail on the head, but a little too hard. Let's see if that works. Ah. So the signature is what threw me off, because it wasn't required by the other input type. So we don't need that expression there. Double check this one more time. Check console for errors. Oh, no, that didn't work. Requires a value for the expression parameters. Is normally used when automatic binding. So that's where you got that from. I understand now. So this means when we set value manually using value equals, then the compiler isn't able to automatically assert what type it is. So we have to tell it what type we are passing in, or what type that value is. So when we call the value change, then it understands that it is a string type. So I get that now, but that is not intuitive. Not at all. So I think documentation is an issue here for one. I'm not sure what they can change. I don't know if the compiler can be improved to figure out the types, but it's not able to find. If I set bind value, it can. If I set value, it cannot. So then we have to have the expression, and that was driving all of the problems with our method call. So this is taking the changed value and passing it into our function. So that makes a little more sense now. So at least we gave that a try. There's still a big documentation gap. Yeah, and it's ugly, ain't it? Don't like it. We'll have to check out the Telerik UI stuff later and see how we solved it, because I know it's a little bit easier than that. All right. So now we have our ports being assigned. So we can finally look at this again. And the other thing we were looking at was disabled. Can we toggle a disable class? Yeah, there's a normal bind, but it doesn't let you set a value change for it. So you can have bind without any of this, but you can't have, they're mutually exclusive. So you can't use bind and on change at the same time. Bind internally calls on change. So if you set an on change event, then it just doesn't fire. Which I think that would help things tremendously if you didn't have to be so explicit. If you could use bind and say, when you bind, this is the function I want to run. Maybe that's chasing my tail, though. I don't know. It ended up this way for a reason. Let's see here. So disabled was something I was looking at, and I can't remember if we can set this with a razor, with a little bit of razor or not. And I know there was some work done to translate disabled correctly with HTML. Let's see if it does that now. So this should be disabled at first, and then when the binding or the event takes place, it should toggle it. And hopefully it works. Nothing else has today. All right, so boom, select. I can get rid of this breakpoint now. I know it triggers. And that did work. So it does toggle the disabled state correctly. So now we can set this up to list out our values. So if it's null, we're going to display select a location, else we are going to write out, let's see here. We want to list, I want to take this code and modify it. So we're going to loop through our ports. Whoops, we already have our if statement. We don't need that. We already checked to see if it's null. It is not null. So we can say ports, each port and port location, or ports, pots. So each location, or each port, we are going to write out the ID and the name. I believe that's how they're structured. And then ports is with a capital P. Boom. Like that. That should do it. We also want, I'm going to change this verbiage here to select a port. So we're going to have a different default option now. And if I rerun this, I think we actually have a working cascading drop-down box after all of that shenanigans, just to find out that we needed to set a an expression to teach the compiler what type we are working from. That ended up being a little less difficult than I thought it was going to be, but there were no intelligent errors to give us a path in the right direction. So that worked. When this goes back to null, or it doesn't go back null, so that's something that needs to get fixed. So what happens here if we deselect a location? Okay. So that's something that needs to be worked on. I'm not sure where I want to go with that yet, but we have our cascading value. And what I should probably do is select the first item by default rather than popping in another empty option. So let's actually take that out. Select a location, scroll down, select a port. Let's see if that, let's do, I think we might have to put an if in here, possibly. We could do this one of two ways. Let's double check and make sure this does what I think it's going to do. Yeah, bind is used for HTML. You can also do bind value, but then we can't override the selected event. So we end up chasing our tail on that one. So if I select an item, oh, it does default to the first item. So we'll just leave it that way. So if we change, yeah, it's always got something in there. Yeah, that's better. So we can select those. Could exclude the select port in the destination. Not sure what you mean, Super Sniper. If you could elaborate a little bit more. And then we haven't got to this one yet, so destination doesn't do anything yet. But if we're traveling to another place, yeah, we still have to set a destination port. There's not so many of these. We may not need to actually have a drop down here. And we could just list ports instead of the top level here. But I was curious to see how we could do cascading drop downs. So we may refactor this out completely, but for learning purposes, I really did want to see if we could do cascading drop downs and how difficult or easy they are. It looks like they can be a bit of a pain. Let's see here. Pretty happy with this so far. We would have to do the same thing for destination. We will go ahead and do that, and then I think we will refactor this form out. It is a little messy, the implementation here. The form and some of the page concerns look like they're just muddling all over each other. So while this has stuff in the back end here, I don't think the form and some of these actions necessarily are separate concerns. So they're just stepping on one another. So I'll have to rethink that. What we want to do is we need, let's see. Yeah, it depends on how many ports you had in the long run. So ideally, yeah, I got too many windows open here. Ideally, if we had a real world application, and we may bake some of this in over the course of creating this. We've got about a month left to work on this. And what we'll probably end up doing is geolocation and geolocation will figure out most of this for us. But we should always have a fallback here in case somebody wants to override what the geolocation is. But yeah, if you have, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 options here. If there were other locations and those locations had 10 options and 20 options, it could really get messy really quick. So the cascading dropdowns are nice. So we'll have to do a little UX test on this later and figure out some things. So we have our location and our ports. The problem is they are the same for destinations. Ports, the locations are fine. This port details needs to be a little more specific. And this needs to be what did I call it for the selected item? Here's where the form and the page are getting a little muddled together. Whoops. Configuration is port of travel. So we need a separate list of ports. Ports of... So we have ports that we're leaving from. We'll just copy this guy. Duplicate. And then we should have destination ports as well. Let's see. I'm going to call this one departure, so we can distinguish the two. So back on our page, we need to change that as well to, and it's not just ports anymore, is departure. Departure ports. You have to change all of those null checks. Can I put the location selectors in a component and reuse? Yeah, no. So let's see where we can refactor once we're done. We might be able to combine these into some type of component, but let's double check here real quick. Because we're going to have separate selections. So what we could probably do, yeah, we may be able to refactor that whole dynamic out, the cascading drop downs out into their own component. But we'll do that in a minute. Let's get to where this all works first, and then we'll fix it. So departure ports. I like where your head's at, though, Super Sniper. I think you're headed in the right direction. You're one step ahead of me, buddy. Ports and destination ports. And then we're going to have a change on that event. So, yeah, this is actually going to be a complete duplicate of that. No, you're right. We could actually probably do this now. So these two, let's drop that. These two, where's my application? I get it running again. Unless it's broken. So I've been typing code in there. So what we could do, even though they're different instances, they are going to be the same. These two items will be the same type of component. So now that we've got our pickup and port of travel, this could probably refactor out into its own component that just the component would have a set of properties that gives you the selected items in here, and the verbiage would need to change. So we'd have to have a property to set the text, and then they would fetch the data. I don't know if I want to put DB context stuff in a, well, I guess that's no different than putting it on a page. But then we could just essentially plop that down here. Let's try it. Let's see what problems this causes. So if we wanted to make these two drop-down boxes into their own component, let's actually save that for next week. It's edging up on 2 hours here. So I think that will be the next show, is deciding how do we move forward. Do we take pickup location and port of travel, the two drop-down boxes that cascade with one another, wrap those up in a component, and then just slap that down here as a second instance of it? Then we can collect the data from it into the form, just as it's being collected now. I think that would work just fine. So let's do that next week. We will create a custom component that is very specific to this scenario, that has the cascading drop downs included. So I like that idea. So yep, good idea, Super Sniper. We will do that next week. I think I'm gonna go down to 2 shows a week. 3 shows. I keep colliding with meetings at work on Monday. So it is getting to the point where I am immediately leaving a meeting and doing a show, and the shows are not well attended on Monday. Actually, attendance is a little bit low again today, too. So if you guys are interested in helping me out, please make sure you share with your friends. Make sure you follow so you know when the shows are coming online. I'm doing Wednesday and Friday next week at noon Eastern Standard Time. Thanks again for joining me on the show today. I'd love to see more people interested in Blazor and watching the show live. So please share with your friends. Let them know that this is happening and we're building something. We'll be doing all sorts of stuff on this. We'll be doing some design work, creating components, and we've got machine learning in there already. We'll be learning a lot of stuff over the next couple weeks. So let your coworkers and friends know about the show. Let's see who we've got available to raid. Let's see, C# Fritz is still online. He's been streaming for a while already today. I don't know how much of his show is left. I don't know if he's doing a marathon or what's going on there. He was on before I was. I don't have time to stream for very long periods. I've got work to do today, and unfortunately, as much as I'd like to do more of this, I cannot. So thanks again, guys, for joining me here. We'll raid Mr. Fritz here in a second. He's streaming a workshop today. Let's go join his workshop in progress and say hello. Thanks for joining me while Mr. Fritz is online. He's always got something good going on, but you guys came to stop by and see what I was up to today. So thank you very much. And we will see you next week. Take care.